Hello and welcome to September's book review. Filming this with a couple of days to go to the end of the month, but the book I'm just starting is a beast, so definitely won't finish that by the end of September. But the way the upload schedule has that I've planned out means that this goes up slightly before the end of the month. We've got quite a few books to go through, and I've actually listened to my first ever audiobook this month, so we've got that to discuss as well. So let's jump on right into it and get on with the first book, which is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. So this is the prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, and it's all based around Snow when he is, I guess, a teenager, 17, 18, just before he heads off to college and stuff like that. And it's about the 10th Hunger Games, I believe. I think I was a little disappointed with this book. And I think that's because Snow as a character isn't that great. Obviously in the Hunger Games trilogy he's sort of the baddie. So having this massively chunky book all set around him, not the best, I have to say. It wasn't my favourite of ideas, and it does go on a bit because it is, as I said, a very long book. I liked seeing how the Hunger Games has developed. So in this one, Snow is a mentor, and it's the first time they've ever had mentors and the first time that they're allowing viewers to send in packages and to bet on it and things like that. So seeing how the Hunger Games evolves by the time you get to the ones with Katniss, that's quite interesting to see. This is closer to the end of the war than that trilogy, so the impact of that and things. But I did feel that because I read the original trilogy, maybe 10 years ago? Does that sound right? I kind of remember Pete reading them in Tenerife. So that would have been about 2012, so yeah, 9-10 years ago. Wow, that's longer than I thought. So because I read that trilogy such a long time ago, I feel like there's loads of Easter eggs in this book that I just didn't pick up on them because it's been so long since I read the books. So I kind of felt like I was missing stuff often throughout. And then there's just some actual reading things that I didn't enjoy. So the first is that the tribute that Snow is mentor for is called Lucy, and obviously the presenter is called Lucky, and I kept getting those mixed up. I kept reading paragraphs going, huh? And then realising we're talking about the presenter, not the tribute. So that was frustrating. Obviously this is a hardback, and as I said many a time, quite a hefty one, so it was quite heavy to read. And my main criticism as someone with a fear of snakes is the amount of snakes in this book. I know the clue is in the title, but there wasn't that much about songbirds. And just in the thing itself, it's on the front cover, it's in the front dust jacket, the beginning of every chapter has a snake on it. Just too much snakes for me. So when I rated this on Storygraph, I did have to drop half a point or whatever you want to call it because of the amount of snakes and the amount of snakes in this and just all of that kind of stuff. So all in all, I was a little bit disappointed with it. I thought it was good to have a continuation and sort of more world building of that universe, but I don't think Snow is a strong enough character or a interesting enough character to warrant such a book. So that was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Whilst reading that book, I was also listening to Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine or Levine, not entirely sure how that's pronounced. So this was my first ever audiobook. I found that my library uses an app called Libby, which I'm sure everybody else knows about other than me, and Ella Enchanted was the first on my list of books that I want to read that I found there with an audiobook. Plus I thought as a sort of children's book it's one that I'm less likely to pick up physically, and as I like the film as well, I thought it would be less likely that I would pick it up physically, but it is a story that I wanted to read, listen to, you know, that kind of thing. So I have a little bit of an issue with, I guess, BookTube and people that announce publicly the amount of books that they read and stuff like that, because I've now realised that most of the time it's because they've listened to tons of audiobooks, but then they say they've read 150 when in fact they've read like 20 and listened to 130 books. Now, I've got no problem with that. It's the terminology that I have an issue with. They haven't read those books, they've listened to them. I can't say that I have read Ella Enchanted because I listened to it. I didn't read it. But that is a rant for another day, and we'll go on to Ella Enchanted. So as I said, I like the film a lot with Anne Hathaway. The book is very different from the film. It has the same characters pretty much in it, but the story is almost entirely different because there's no crazy uncle. They're a lot younger when it's based. How she comes to get rid of the curse is all different, and possibly because I consumed the film first, I preferred the film, and I found actually that the novel, the audiobook, was a lot closer to Cinderella than the film was. So again, it's not one I massively enjoyed. It was fine. It kept me entertained while I was walking the dog in the mornings. There were a couple of points that I chuckled, but also I'm not sure I got on very well with the narrator, and I found that when they were doing the different voices for the different characters, it was all like the same voice, and that kind of frustrated me a bit. But yes, that's Ella Enchanted by Gail, Carson, Levine. My non-fiction book of the month was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. This, I'm a little bit ashamed to say why I read this. This is a book that Pete got given for Christmas years ago. He's actually read this one. It's been on my bookshelf for a long time, and the only reason I decided to read it is because it appears on lots of list challenges, and I want to tick it off because I obviously have the copy of it, so I might as well read it. But yeah, this follows Anthony Bourdain. He is a chef, so it gives you a lot of insight into the world of New York kitchens and chefing and their lifestyle. I wouldn't say he comes across as a very nice man, and kitchens don't appear to be very nice places to work. I liked that this book was in sections, so you had starter, first course, second course, dessert, you know, coffee. I think the second course chapter or section was my favourite because that gave you the more useful tips about specials and how chefs come up with them, and you know, on which days they're not getting fresh deliveries, so that's why that's going to be a special and that's why you should avoid it, and all of that kind of thing. So that second course section was my favourite. I did also enjoy the chapter, the day in the life chapter, as it did shine a light on chefs and chefing as a job and how difficult it sounds, particularly if you're, you know, head chef and all of that kind of stuff, and you've got lots of plates to spin and lots of things to organise and do and make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, as well as cooking and etc, etc, etc. So there were definitely parts of this book that I did really enjoy, but on the whole I found it didn't really have very much structure, and as I said, Anthony Bourdain as a person I didn't really gel with, and I really feel for his wife. So yeah, that was Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. And then because the first 2 books of the month were a bit heavier and a bit more difficult to get into and get through, and because I was really drawn to the colour of the cover, I read The Lock-In by Phoebe Luckhurst. Just as an aside, obviously I love the colour of this dust jacket, but then it also has the, if I can do it, the prettiest actual physical cover. So this follows 3 flatmates, Ellen, Alexa and Jack. Ellen and Alexa are best friends, and Jack is the housemate that they got through an internet ad, basically, when they had a spare room. And then the 4th person is Ben, and he is Alexa's date. They find out that their kitchen is flooding, so they need to sort that out, but in the process of doing that they end up being locked in the attic and they can't get out. So this whole book spans pretty much a couple of hours, apart from the end where you get a bit of what happened next. It has multiple points of view in it. You get chapters from, I think, all of them, but mainly Ellen and Alexa, and I always enjoy a multiple point of view book. Don't know why, just do. And although the sort of topic is a bit farcical, when is your kitchen going to flood and then you get locked in an attic, the people in the story, the characters, are all really quite realistic and believable and all of that. The characters are all around the age that I am, so there was a lot of references that really resonated with me and made me chuckle. There were things about MSN and different fashions and all of that kind of stuff, which I really enjoyed, being allowed to sort of reminisce in that way through these characters' opinions and perspective on it. And on the blurb here they make a big thing of Ellen and Ben's relationship from the past, so I was expecting something quite dramatic and quite big, and when that was revealed it was a bit anticlimactic. It was sort of it sort of fizzled out a lot. I was a bit like, is that really it? Is that what we picked up here? I won't say what it is, but I was disappointed with it personally. I mean, it made for an interesting story, but I was expecting more from what I had read about this book and what I'd heard about this book. So that was a bit of an anticlimax for me. In my notes I've written that it's easy but not spectacular, and that kind of sums it up entirely. It's a very easy book to read, it's enjoyable, but there's nothing that special about it. If you're into this sort of contemporary multiple point of views, Friends kind of books, then there's definitely one to pick up, but it's not one that's gonna blow your socks off in my opinion. So that's The Lock-In by Phoebe Luckhurst. As you know, I've been reading a classic every month, and if I'm honest, this month I was gonna just skip it and not bother, but I'm stubborn and I can't do that. So I tried to find a short one. So I ended up with The Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I really can't talk. Why am I filming a book review when I can't speak? But yeah, it's by Agatha Christie. I have only ever read And Then There Were None before by this author, and I must say I did prefer it to The Murder on the Orient Express. I somehow managed to get through this book without knowing anything really about it or about the murderer or anything like that, because obviously it's a Christie, it's a murder mystery book, and you know, clue in the title, Murder on the Orient Express. So somehow I've gone through life not knowing the twist here, which was nice, and it was again an enjoyable read, but I did prefer And Then There Were None. I did find that it was a little bit slow to get into, but once they found the body and started doing the investigation, it really did pick up speed, and I liked how each chapter was the interview with each of the passengers and how you got little snippets of information that you could try and pull together to try and figure out who the murderer was. And as I say, the twist was fun. So not a huge amount to say on this one. I will be picking up some more Christie Agatha Christie in the future because I do find them easy to read and fun to read. This was a Poirot investigation, which not one I've read, as I say, because I've only done And Then There Were None before. But yeah, they're good books when you've got not a lot of time and you want something twisty. Obviously these are written quite some time ago, but I don't get how she's managed to do it so often, if that makes sense. But anyway, I'm going off on a ramble and we've still got 2 books to cover, so I will move on. So that was Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. What I thought was going to end the month was Withering Tights by Louise Rennison. I picked this up in a charity shop in Sheffield when we went up and did that trip. If you haven't seen that one, I'll link the video up here if you fancy it. Louise Rennison is the author of the Georgia Nicholson series, so it starts with Angus Thumbs and Full Frontal Snogging and goes on that way. And I loved those books as a teenager. That was like one of my favourite series. So I've known of Withering Tights for a long time. It probably came out, let's have a look when it came out, that will answer my question. Yeah. It came out in 2010, so I was at university when this one came out, which is why I didn't pick it up at the time, because, you know, it's not really aimed at me and my current age and stuff like that. But when I found it for 75p in the charity shop in Sheffield, I thought, why not give it a go, as Louise Rennison has a little place in my heart from my teenage years. So this follows Tallulah, who is Georgia's cousin, as she goes up to Yorkshire to a performing arts summer school kind of thing. And like with the Georgia Nicholson series, it's all about snogging boys and that kind of stuff. This makes a lot of references to classic books. Obviously Withering Tights is a pun on Wuthering Heights, so that gets mentioned quite a bit, as does Jane Eyre and a few other classics which I have read this year, and I'm very glad I have, because I just would have been lost by a lot of it. And also it does give some massive spoilers to those books within here. So as I say, glad I'd read those before coming into this one. And this does have a lot of the sort of things you expect from a Louise Rennison book. The slightly strange language, the comedic situations and all of that, but I don't think it's as good as the Georgia Nicholson series. For me it fell a little bit flat, but then I'm not the target audience anymore. Maybe if I read it as a teenager I would have thought it was great because it was by the same author, but I didn't feel the same connection, the same pool of support for Tallulah than I did with Georgia. And also there's this character in here that has a speech impediment. She's got a lisp and I think she struggles with her R's, and it's written like that in the book, and I didn't like that. I thought it just took the mickey out of the speech impediment rather than like shining a light on it. So that sort of grated on me a little bit. So as I say, I'm glad I've read it. If I can find, is it Midsummer Night's Dream, again cheap, or maybe an audiobook, then I will give that one a go. I believe that's Louise Rennison's last book, because she did die unfortunately quite early. But yeah, Tallulah hasn't replaced Georgia, that's for certain. So that's Withering Tights by Louise Rennison. As I say, I thought that was going to be the last book, but then this morning I read a little novella in about half an hour, and that was Winter Snow by Carrie Hope Fletcher. I found this on Amazon for about £1. As you can see, it's a slightly strange copy, it's a mass market copy, and this is a novella that goes alongside On the Other Side, or accompanies On the Other Side, should I say, and this is from Vincent's point of view. So On the Other Side follows Evie Snow. After she's died, she's got 3 secrets that she has to unburden herself with before she can transition into the other life, or whatever it is. And this follows Vincent as he has to do the same thing, essentially, to fight for Evie so that they can be together in the afterlife. I thought it was a good companion to On the Other Side, but it's been a little while since I've read that book, so some of the details I may not have picked up on. But I think if you read that book and then read this one straight after, I think they'd go really well together, and as you can see, it's incredibly short. It's about 48 pages, if that, which is why I read it so quickly this morning. And I've always liked Carrie's writing, the descriptions and stuff in there is really nice. So yeah, glad I picked it up. I think one day I will reread On the Other Side, and then, as I said, read this one straight after. I think that would be a good time. Yeah, so that's my little short review of my little short book of Winter Snow by Carrie Hope Fletcher. And there you have it. There are all the books that I read in September. As I say, the next book that I'm reading is a beast, and it's my entry ticket to the Magic Kingdom for the Magical Hopathon, which I'm hoping to take part in October for the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. So I will leave the announcement video in the description box down below if you're interested in it and you feel like you want to take part. I'm attempting to complete the Magic Kingdom prompts. Just go to one park for me. But yeah, I'll let you know how I get on with that next month. So if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already and you fancy it, please go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!